FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. He is Bob Pollock from the Indiana County Extension joining us this morning, and our visit presented by Marcus & Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 4 years in a row now in the Best of Indiana County contest. Visit them online, marcusandmack.com. So last week after the program, I happened to be in the 9th Street lobby, and I saw this yellow note there filled up front to back with questions that the person who left this note had intended for me to ask you last week, but I didn't see it until after the program. So I'm going to take a shot at it this week.
Okay.
Because this person has a lot of questions.
I'll take a shot at it also.
This comes from a local organic gardener. Her name is Cindy, and this is question number 1. Can I start carrots, beets, spinach, kale, Asian greens now for fall growing and wintering over? That's a lot of things. So she wants to start them for growing in the fall and then wintering over. All of those different things. Carrots, beets, spinach, kale, Asian greens. She do that now or not?
Yeah, she can. We're still in August.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're going to have protection, and you might even need a little bit of heat, carrots can take, 90 to 100 days or longer. So depending on the size that you want to grow them to. If you're going to harvest them younger, which a lot of people do, they want the baby carrots, then, you got a lot greater chance of making that happen. Yeah. You may need both heat and protection from cold.
Yeah.
To sow some of that. But
carrots and beets, they're root crops.
And
they'll grow underground.
Yes.
But she's got spinach and kale and Asian greens too. And those are overgrown.
Yeah, and those are, especially spinach and kale, those are tough. So they can handle the cooler weather. They like the cooler weather anyway. Mm-hmm. So, sure.
Give it a shot anyway.
The other thing we don't know is, how she's planning to do that. Mm-hmm. Does she have a greenhouse, structure? Is she going to do it, or is she going to try to do that indoors under lights, or is this outdoors? Although,
well, maybe her other questions can give us a hint about that. I'll go to one that might address that.
Supplemental lighting may also be helpful too.
This question says, I can't afford PVC pipes and rebar for tunnels at this time. What alternate methods are there? So it sounds like she's going to be outdoors with this.
Yes, it does.
And she's looking for ways to protect them as they grow. She says, I do not have a cold frame either. So what alternatives are there in those cases?
Well, okay. If you can't use PVC, they do make steel hoops. It's heavier wire that they use for hoops. Those might be less expensive than, you can use scraps of wood too. You can use pallets.
I was thinking of that.
Something like that scrap material to somebody that you can get for free for the asking. Don't go just taking somebody's pallets that are on their dock, but sometimes they want to have to dispose of those. They don't have a way to do it, and so you can ask and get those for nothing.
Yeah.
And that would be a way to build a structure, and you can even take it apart and use pieces of that to make a structure also, or other scrap wood that you can use to build a frame, and then just use plastic,
as the actual cover.
Yes, and cover that with plastic. That can be a way to inexpensively make a protective structure. Essentially that's all a greenhouse is that structural material, whether it be wood or metal, with a plastic coating over top of it. We can get much more sophisticated about that, but in its basic essence, that's all it is. So you can do that. I'm trying to think what other ways you can, it doesn't have to be large either. And in planting in the ground, if you're going to use raised beds, now you can also make your own raised bed. You don't have to use wood or to structurally build it up. I mean, you can just build the soil up into a mound.
Well, let me add another question of hers
Okay.
here that might help you as well. Is in-ground culture best, or is container grown just as good? Should containers be partially sunk into the ground? Sounds like she's willing to do whatever
Yes.
is necessary to make this work for her.
And I think whether you sink it into the ground, doing it in the ground, you get the buffering effect of the ground, the heat that is in the ground, to help lengthen the season. But eventually, when it gets cold enough, if we don't have a structure there to help use the sun or other heat source to keep that warm, the soil will cool down to the point where those plants won't grow. They'll be done. Now, we also know that in the fall, we can use that ground as a storage place too for root crops. You know, and you've done that, and that works until the ground gets completely frozen, and then the vegetable freezes, and then in the spring it turns to mush.
Yeah.
But if you can put straw mulch on there as another way to help buffer that and lengthen that, it'll take longer for the soil to freeze, you know, doing that at that point versus having bare ground. So sinking the pots in the ground can help, you know, with that buffering, but you could, and a pot will freeze quicker sitting on top of the ground than it will in the ground.
Yeah.
Most, you know.
Yeah. And the material we're thinking about here with pots is what? Is it clay? Is it plastic? Is it wood?
It's probably going to be some sort of plastic pot. Clay, I wouldn't use clay pots in the ground because if that ground does freeze, those pots are done.
Yeah.
They're going to crack. They're not going to handle that pressure and force. So some sort of plastic container, you know, nursery pot, you know, something like that has some flex to it, will last longer and do better in that situation. But you don't even have to put them in pots. If you want the ability to move them around a little bit, then yes, that would be an advantage to have any of those crops in containers, that if you had to move them indoors, that would give you the flexibility to do that. And that would be a whole nother way to do it. Put them in containers, and the quantity that you're trying to grow, if this is just for yourself or, you know, for 1 or 2 or 3 people, we're not talking about a lot of, you know, you don't need a lot of beets or a lot of carrots. What you do need is a little bit of succession if you're trying to lengthen, have more availability of those. Then you don't want to seed everything at one time right now. You want to start and then maybe have a couple seedings, especially on some of the shorter day stuff, you know, that might only take 45 or 50 days to grow.
Yeah.
You can have multiple successions of those to give you more quantity of produce for a longer period of time.
Plant now, get it in the middle of October.
Yeah, yeah. And you could start with some of it in the ground and then transition to some containers for the later stuff, so that depending on your options there and how much of a protective structure you have and the ability to be able to move it indoors, that in the containers you'd have that flexibility to do that.
Okay, here's a couple of other questions here from Cindy, the organic farmer. And these are both related too. Could I just cover ground with some sort of heavy plastic or fabric for winter cover? And pair that question with what are some great cover crops that incorporate easily and don't tie up nutrients? So as a cover crop for the winter, or as a way to cover and protect that ground for the winter and keep the nutrients right where they are. Plastic and or fabric, can she just go ahead and cover the garden with those? And would that be helpful?
If you have a lot of weed pressure, just covering with fabric is definitely an option. Or there may be sections of the garden that you're having more trouble with, that you want to just tarp it, essentially, and shade the ground. And also although the heat effects, sometimes we will use a fabric to put on, tarp it in the summer because we're trying to kill off weed seeds and maybe some disease organisms too. But that solarization effort, we're kind of getting past the time of the year when that is really effective because we don't have enough sunlight for a long enough time to heat up things to a high enough temperature for long enough to kill off a lot of stuff at this point in the growing season.
Right.
But just tarping it in the fall can help reduce, especially some of the winter annuals and problems, and it can snuff out some of the weed problems that you might have now.
Only a couple of seconds left.
And
so let's
the cover crops, there's a whole bunch of cover crops.
Yeah.
The tying up of nutrients really isn't an issue because with cover crops, we want to plant those soon.
And they're going to add nutrients.
And they're going to grow, cover the ground, protect the soil. But in the spring, the whole idea with that is to incorporate those back in. We're not removing that material. We're incorporating it back into the ground so that we're preserving the nutrients.
That's where you mentioned
and adding nutrients.
Rye.
Yes.
You mentioned
so rye grain
week.
is a good example, and there's a whole bunch of others.
Yeah.
Some are legumes.
We're out.
And there we go.
We're out. Thank
We're
you,
done.
sir. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye. See ya.